Well, hey, thanks for stopping by today. Today we have a 1994 Softail Heritage that just needs some love. This is a customer of mine that has several bikes, and he just picked this one up, and it's got some issues. It's got a starter kind of drag, which I'll show you here in a minute. Fork seals are leaking everywhere, and also no rear brake at all. So some things we need to address before we can make this roadworthy and the customer can go out and enjoy it. So welcome back to Butler Customs Motorcycle Shop. Well, I tell you what, today it's 103 in the shop today. I'm hotter than a flaming hot Cheeto right now. But enough whining. Let me get you peepers in here and show you around and what we're going to do. Pretty cool old bike. If you like the old Evos, they ride great. Just old lop, 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 lop sound. So let me bring you in here and we'll walk around and check it out. So here's a shot of that beautiful paint job up front, or up close. Love that pin striping. Pretty bike. Got some miles on it. How many miles do we have here? Oh, 81,000. Now, with 81,000, you're going to see some wetness. So, I'm not sure if this has been sitting a while or not. Got Kentucky plates on it. It's got current tags, so I'm not sure, you know, how long she's been down for. That paint kind of reminds me, we're going to do a chopper build, me and you, and this paint just got back. Look at that. We're going to do an old school chopper build. Look how beautiful that is. I'm blessed to have a really talented painter that's local. I'm like talking 2 miles down the road, and he does just excellent work. Mike Howe is his name. Volunteer Automotive, I think Body Works, maybe body repair, I'm not sure, but man, he does great work. Excellent work. So this paint's nice, but I kind of like that other paint as well. So be looking for that video. That's going to be an awesome video coming up soon. So let me start the bike and let you hear that starter drag. Okay, ignition. Do we have neutral? We have neutral. Let's see if you can hear the drag. Pretty unmistakable. Now, with that clicking noise, anytime you get that clicking noise, it's your starter. It's not the jack shaft or the gear that goes out, plunges out, and it's not the clutch basket. Anytime you hear that clicking sound like that, that is your starter. So, we got a new starter. We'll be putting in that. Now, to get this starter out, oil tank's got to come out. So we'll be dropping the oil, changing that, changing plugs, changing primary, because of course primary's got to come off. And to do the primary on these older bikes, we will have to drop this floorboard and get this primary off. It's got another one of those access that I really like. So we'll be dropping that, and of course tightening everything up in there as well. And then our forks, you can tell that it's leaking by the way that it is. So we got new fork seals we'll be doing. If you've ever wondered what it takes to do fork fluid change and new fork seals in the bike, glad you stopped by. We'll be doing that. And let me get you over here for these old brake pedals. Nothing all the way down. So he doesn't know. And here's the weird thing. he's not finding any leaks at all. So could be just the plunger issue, not sure. But now I'll tell you, I know by experience, a rebuild kit for this master cylinder for the rear is exactly almost to the penny as much as a brand new chrome master cylinder, the whole thing. So not sure why that is, but it is. Don't have to do any motor work besides just changing the oil. So this is going to be all just roadworthy stuff, motor. But we're still going to have a lot of fun, and we still got to do a lot, especially to get this out. I just wish Harley would have just made this tank, just swooped it. You wouldn't have lost that much oil anyway. And come on, Harley. So let's get started. I think what I'm going to do first, I'm going to take the seat off, disconnect the battery since we're going to be working with the starter, and then I'm going to go ahead and drop the oil out, so the oil will be running out of this tank. To get this tank out, you usually make a mess, so the quicker we can get the oil drained and just kind of let it drain, the better. So let's get going. Alrighty, we'll take this seat off, and it looks like it just comes off. Pretty cool. Oh, and it's a Softail, it's got these bolts that actually hold the seat on. Big old bolts. Big old Allen head bolts. It's a 3/8 on this. I've seen, just bolt heads and Allen heads and anything you can use to run in there and out of the way. And we have I forgot about this. Do you hear that? That's a vibration seat. For the passenger, not the rider. Luckily, it's got a quick disconnect here. And we'll get this negative off. And we will undo the positive as well. Okay, that's the main. All this other stuff, he's using both terminals on each side, the nuts for them. So he's got the main hooked up, and then on the other side he's got all his other accessories, his vibrating seat. That is disconnected, and we're going to move this up out of the way. We're going to be taking the battery out to get the tank out because the battery sets in the tank. So I will be taking all that other stuff off as well. Got them packed in here, man. I don't know why, but on this negative side, they've got all these wires taped up, tons of electrical tape, but it's negative. Never understood that. On some of the older bikes, and even some of the old trucks, like my old shop truck, it's a bump side. No, sorry, it's a dent side. I've had 5 or 6 of them, but it's a dent side truck, old Ford, and it's got ground straps, uncoated ground straps. So I don't know why all of the covering up of a ground wire. All right, now we should be able to pull this battery out. If we can get my mitts on it. Yeah. There we go. Looks like a newer battery. The only wires that will have to be fed out of the oil pan is the hot wire that runs down to the starter, but we'll kind of undo that underneath. So it shouldn't be an issue with that. All the other wires are good. Boy, there's a gobble of wires. All right, so let's get this oil pan drained out, we'll go ahead and pull the plug or the cap, and then the plug down here is just a line running down with a cap on it and a clamp, a hose clamp. So very, very convenient. Yeah, I don't know if you can see that or not. I'll take this hose clamp off. I'm going to run it out pretty far so I can just pull the clamp over the little stopper and then pull the stopper. So it's got the stopper, the hose runs down from the tank, goes over that, and the oil is draining. We're going to do a new oil filter as well. Oh gosh. All right, so while I've got the pan under here catching the oil from the tank, I'm going to go ahead and drop the oil from primary. That was not tight at all. I bet it's been leaking. It feels wet. There we go. Let's see what the plug looks like. Oh my goodness. That's a pretty bad one. That's probably one of the worst that I've seen. Oh, that's a whole lot of metal. Oh my goodness. Well, I hope that clutch basket is okay, because that's not brake material, that is straight up metal. Oh gosh, I wonder if all those teeth have rounded off on that clutch basket. Oh yikes. Now I'm even more anxious to get this off. Oh my goodness, that's just heartbreaking. Not good news. We might be having to get us a clutch basket. Oh man. And no oil came out of that either. I don't know if you noticed that or not, but well, yeah, there's a little, but gosh, it's black. It's just dripping out. This is not going to be pretty inside, guys, but I can go ahead and get this cover off. So I suspect we're going to be taking that clutch basket out now. What do you think? Okay. 2, 3. Hard to tell right now. Oh, guys, I don't think this is good. There it goes. Somebody put some super glue up in that. Oh my. Ooh, a lot of slop in the chain. All right, let's get this floorboard off, just kind of dropped out of the way, and then we can pull this cover and inspect better. I'm going to go ahead and take this chrome cover piece off just so it's out of the way. And I did notice that his shifter lever is almost all the way off. So I'm going to take it off as well. And all these little chrome accessories are nice until you've got to get in here to work on something. And if it wasn't for this one bolt down here, we wouldn't have to remove all this. So I'm curious to see what that clutch basket looks like. There we go. Stick it back in there so I don't lose that. I don't suspect many of these are going to be too tight on us. Now some of these are going to be longer and some are going to be shorter, so you might want to keep up with what's what. I'm going to break these all free and then just use my gun to get them all out. Which none are even really that tight at all. All right, and just as I had suspected, that starter clutch, the basket here on the back, it's missing a whole lot of teeth. Tons of slop in that. Oh man, that's really unfortunate. Really sad that they have ground it down to almost nothing. Which means we have to pull this basket off and the compensator sprocket as well, and the chain tensioner. Slide all this out so we can replace this basket here. Bad news for the customer. Might even have to replace this throwout engagement gear, because I don't know if you can see that. I'll see if I can get you in here, but it's missing half its teeth. All right, so I'm giving you a bird's eye view looking straight down, and this gear right here, these teeth are what we want to look at. I'm going to rotate the compensator, and you watch. You say, well, that doesn't look that bad. I mean, there's some teeth marred up. Oh, just wait. Oh my. Do you see that? Half of this whole sprocket, well, probably 3/4 of it is gone. Absolutely. This is missing the whole tooth here. This is bad, really bad. It's very unfortunate for the customer. We'll have to replace this clutch basket. These are riveted in this plate, but it's just best to come all together as a basket just to buy that, and it comes with a new throwout gear too. Now you say, well, what causes this? A bad starter. If the starter does not come out and engage completely, it'll wear on the back side of this. Doesn't have enough force to push all the way out. So it'll just grind back here, and the owner will, or whoever, not this owner, but a owner, because he just bought this bike. But anyway, when it grinds like that and the starter gets weak, you know, you're sitting on your bike, you hold the starter button until, you know, it finally catches and it starts. And you think, well, everything's fine. My starter's getting weak. What you don't realize is that it is chewing through this basket, and it leaves all of this in your primary. So all between his clutches and everything, you're getting this. So I didn't have a chance to ride the bike, and I'm wondering if it's messed his clutch disc up. Of course, we'll be taking each disc and plate out, so you and I will be able to inspect it. We'll put the calipers on it and make sure the thickness of the pads, friction pads, are good. So while we're waiting on the customer to come up, see what he wants to do. I mean, I know what he's got to do, but I just want his eyes on this to see what happened and what it's going to take to replace. Let's go ahead and do the forks. And then lastly, we can address the brakes, the rear brakes. I would like to do that with the bike together. I like to ride test brakes anytime we work on them. So let's go ahead and start doing on the forks. All right, so there's some things we've got to, of course, take off just to get to the forks. So we're going to take the windshield off. This has this cover on we're going to take off. But before all that, always either cover your fender, or in this case, I'm taking the fender off because we're pulling the forks anyway. So the very first thing I'll do is take this fender off so it doesn't get dinged and something fall down on it or drop a tool on it. All right, 4/10. Oh yeah. How about we loosen it instead of tighten it? Oh, come on. I don't know who the dude was that invented, well, might have been a woman. I don't know who the person was that invented the ratcheting wrench. I'd like to give them a hug. Man or woman. Wonder what Johnny Cochran is doing. Remember him? All right, last bolt. And with this, kind of be careful, because that fender's going to be loose. I've seen a bolt come out and they could slide down, chip the paint down here on the bottom. So be very careful. Set that somewhere safe. And the bottom side of that, the underside of that fender is full of fork oil. So definitely time to replace this. Now let's work on this windshield up here. It is. So good. I'm trying to stay out of your way, but I'm working here. Can't you see I'm working? There we go. Well, stay in there then. Ornery screws. Take his center bolt out, holds the headlight bracket on. I don't like hanging wires at all. It's really going to annoy me. It's really unfortunate that they didn't put a disconnect there. So I don't like this. I'm just going to cut the wires and resolder them back together. Or I'll put a quick disconnect in. That is exactly what I'll do. Where do I want to cut at? Dirt dauber. Let's cut about right there. Yeah, that'll work. Now we can work. Now these fork tins we can leave on. They are not attached to the fork. They're actually attached to the triple tree. Let me get this off and you can kind of see the forks better. There you go. Now you can kind of see the forks a little bit. And I tell you, we're going to have to clean this up, smooth this out to get these off, because these slide down and there's a bunch of just crust and crud on it. So you can't get a socket underneath here, so I just use a adjustable wrench, a monkey wrench. I don't know if that's the official name of it, but that's what I call it. Now, put your hand up here or over your tank, because you don't want that hitting your tank. Just a couple of little taps. Now, once you break them free, they're pretty, easy to roll around. Take these off, and then they've got O-rings here that will be replaced in the kit. Now we've got some pinch bolts right here and right here. There's none on top for this style bike. Other bikes, newer bikes, there are pinch bolts up here, but not this one. So we're going to adjust. These are, I think, 5/8. Loosen these up. And then what I want to do, I want to raise the bike up, and that will help pull the forks down, because you got the weight of the tire clamped in. Hopefully that'll help pull just a little bit. We'll slide these brakes off. At least those were good and tight. There we go. So these forks here are in pretty bad shape, especially this one. It's got some crusty stuff on it. You want these to be as smooth and slick as possible because they've got to slide out of the bottom of the triple tree, which they're held into place by these pinch bolts right here. So I got some WD-40 and a green Scotch-Brite pad. I'm just going to work that in there. And I'll also shoot a little down around here and let it run around. Now the wheel is locked in. The bike is on the center stand up close toward the front. I'm going to go ahead now and loosen both pinch bolts. Okay, the forks won't slam down because they're up all the way against the top triple tree. However, as I raise the bike, the frame and the triple tree with the wheel locked in and the weight of the wheel still connected to the forks, these should slide down. There we go. Now. That opened up good. This side. Yeah. There we go. That opened up good too. There we go. See how that's coming down? Just twisting that. I want this side to do the same. Looks like it's got a spacer in it. There we go. I don't know if that one, yep, that'll fit. I'll put this on here. And that wasn't even tight at all. Could almost move it with my fingers. All we want is just to get them loose. Wow. Can't believe how loose they were. Can't believe how loose they were. All right. Now we can go ahead at this point. I'm going to let the bike back down on the lift because my back tire is up in the air. And if I let these out, the bike could fall backwards too fast for me. Now I'm going to work on the tire. Take the axle out, just roll the tire off, move the speedometer cable out of the way, and then loosen these pinch bolts again, and the fork should slide out. Now with the fork still tightened in your pinch bolts up here, you're going to need a long 6mm Allen socket. You need it long because it's got to go in here and all the way up through here. You also need a hammer, so you'll get it on, you'll hammer it just to kind of shock it. Then you'll hold the fork and break it loose. Don't take it out or you'll get fluid everywhere. All you want to do is just break it loose so you can take it out later. This is what holds your, those weren't tight at all. This is what holds that piston in at the bottom of this fork. You can't get the seals out unless you take that bolt out and the whole fork slides out with the seal. Now sometimes these forks will slide right out on you where you've already loosened them, so be careful. And slide right out of out on the ground. So just like that, that didn't take much at all. Now you don't have to worry about mixing these up, left side or right side. Your left driver's side will have the 2 bolts here for your brake pad, brake caliper. Your right side will have these long bolts right here. Now what I like to do, I'll take my nuts that go here and I'll screw those back on so that I don't damage the threads when I'm setting this down on anything. I'll just screw them on just enough where they're kind of not even flush. But that way, if I set this down, it doesn't hurt it. And of course, this isn't going to hurt it at all either. We'll leave the right side in till we're ready to come back and get it. I'll put that pinch bolt back in just so it don't slide out on me, but I think we're going to have trouble getting that out. Well, let's get started on getting the oil out of this. Now you might be tempted to just go ahead and take that bolt out and let the oil drain out there, but it'll take 3 days to do that. So what I like to do is I will just go ahead and pop this top cap off. Now this is under pressure, so I put my hand over this. I don't know if you can see this or not. I will actually just twist the fork, keep pressure down on my arm, because it's a pretty big spring in there, until that cap comes off. Okay. Then what you have is the cap with the O-ring. This has a spacer, and it might help you to lay everything out in order. Then as you compress the spring down, with the fork down, there will be a spring. Now you'll notice here that on the spring, these coils are wider and they get narrower as they go down. So keep the orientation of that when you put it back in. So wider, narrower. Lay that there. Now we can just take this and pump that oil out. And it was nasty. What little was in there. And this was the good side. So this is a whole lot quicker than letting it drain out the bottom. Now when most of it's out, now we can take this bolt here out of the bottom, and since we broke it free, it should come right on out for us. And there will be some fluid that'll come out of there. Now, there will be a brass washer on this. Buy you a kit that comes with the new washers and a new Allen head. So sometimes that washer will stay up in there and you need to get it out. So if not, you'll forget it. You'll put the new washer in and you'll double washer it and it'll leak on you. Now you can see there's not much oil that comes out of there anymore. It's a messy job, but somebody's got to do it. Now that that's out, there is a little retaining spring in here that a flathead washer will pop up. Your new kit should come with a new one. And that's it. This seal's ready to come out. Now that you got the bolt out of the bottom, the way that you get the seal out is just by hammering it out like that. Now inside here, you still got some components. You've got that piston that's in there. You have this spacer here. The part with like, it looks like a washer's welded on it, that goes down the bottom of your fork. The piston will actually set in there. Let me go ahead and get that piston out now. There we go. So now what we have is this piston here. Some kits will come with new plastic compressible washers. I usually don't change these unless one's, you know, bad or broken. They're usually good to reuse. You got a spring here, and then this is the cap that goes on the end of this. Now you can't put this in like this when you assemble it. This goes on the outside of this, like that. So it doesn't set all the way flush in there, okay? So we will put this together and lay that aside. And now we have our fork tube. So on it you'll have a seal. And you'll know that what side the seal goes on. The open part goes down, the solid part goes on top. Okay. You will have a washer that sits under the seal. Then you will have this spacer that sits under that. You've got this little brass piece here that clips in. I usually leave that alone unless it's damaged, but this one looks pretty good. Now you can spray this out, clean this out. If there's junk in there, please, please, please do that. But this one looks pretty clean because there wasn't much in there. All right, so that's all the components of the fork seal. And then you have the fork tube itself, or the bottom piece. I don't know what this is called. The bottom fork, maybe? And it will need cleaning out. It's got some junk down in the bottom. So I will spray that out with some carb cleaner and get all that out of there. Now you'll see this bleed washer here, or screw here. I don't ever mess with it. You do, they'll usually leak. I don't mess with it. You'll strip this Phillips head out trying to get to it. I just leave it alone, leave it alone, leave it alone. Unless it's leaking, then you have to address it. So I'm gonna go clean this up. I'm gonna go get our new seal kit. See all the goodies that are in that. If it comes with a new one of these, we'll put that in. And then we'll start assembling this back together. Well, we're back the next day. My iPhone died. I got to get some kind of different videoing system besides my iPhone. I don't know what to get. I don't know if to get the GoPros. I really like those, and then I can get them out and take that on some of the rides that I do and things like that. So I'm thinking that's the route to go. So my iPhone, it uses a whole lot of space to do these videos and a whole lot of battery. But we're back the next day rebuilding this left side fork. So I use a good James gasket kit. It comes with the new brass washers, some O-rings, new seals, also new washers to go underneath, also new clips, and the O-rings that go into the top of this here. Now, I did not get the kit that comes with the new Allen heads. His were good, but if these are stripped out, you'll want to get new ones. but you can find these at a hardware store as well. It also comes with these little O-ring spacer washers that go on a different style. Well, they actually go kind of in here, but they're not used on these. I don't think. We'll see. We'll see. So let's start putting this fork back together. We will be reusing this. We do have a new washer. Now there's a smooth side and like a flattened side, a curved side and a flat side. The curved side I always put down so that the flat side sits against my new seal. Carefully put the new seal on. I will run it down just a little bit, and then everything is together on that. Now we'll go ahead and put the new piston in with the spring. Let that kind of go down in there. Now if it doesn't fall down in there like it should, take you a broom handle, stick in there, and you can kind of push it on down. And we want to get it to come all the way out the bottom here where we can see it. Like that. Now we will put this end cap on here, like so. And now this whole thing is ready to go back in. Just like that. Now, I will put the spring in temporarily just so that it holds everything in place so I can get the new, well, I can get the Allen head bolt and put the new washer, brass washer on. And I'll look down in there. Now this side is the hardest side to do. There we go. Now I will not put any Loctite on these. The brass washer keeps it from leaking. If you put Loctite on that and you're the next guy to take it off, whew, you'll strip those out and then you'll have to tap them out. All right, so that's catching. I'll grab this, and usually you can tighten it all you need right there. And that part is done. Now, if this piston moves with you on the inside, then take the spring out, take your broomstick down in there, and hold the top of the piston. You might have to hammer this down in there, but that'll actually grab in that little top of the piston groove and keep the piston from spinning on you. But most of the times you don't have any trouble with that. Now I'll take my spring back out, and now we're ready to seat this seal down where it's supposed to go. Now they make tools that do it, but I just went to the parts store and got a tailpipe section. It's tapered at this end, wider at this end. So it's 1 7/8 inside diameter, 1 7/8 outside diameter. So you can use this to tap your seal down. It'll fit on this side and this side as well. I like to use the bigger part because it kind of fits better, but it's narrow enough to go inside here. But this is metal, so you want to always tape it Get down here where you can see, because you don't want to damage the new seal going in. So I will run some tape up across the top, and then I'll fold the tape in so that this lip now will not cut anything. All right, then I'll just slide this over and I will tap. You'll feel it seat, you'll hear it seat, and you'll see it seat. Now we can take our new ring, start it in there on one side. And the good thing about these is you can see all the way around that they're seated well. And that's it. Now we're ready to fill with fluid. Now on this model of bike, it takes 11.5 ounces of fluid wet, 12.5 ounces dry. Well, what's the difference between wet and dry? Well, wet is if the forks are still on the bike and your seals are still good, but you want to change your fluid. In that case, with these on the bike, you would pull this screw out. The fluid would drain. You'd pull that tap, the very top cap off that we first took off to let the air flow through. Once all of it's drained out, you'll put the cap back in, and then you'll fill 11.5 ounces in the top, put your cap back on. So changing the fluid on these is pretty easy. Changing the seals requires all of this. With this is dry, so there's no oil in this at all. No oil in the piston, so we will go with 12.5 ounces dry. Now I'll set this gently on the floor. I might have to put it on my knee. Now what type of fluid do we use? You can go to Harley and buy that Harley fluid, fork oil fluid. You can get the good Bel Ray fluid. But remember, Harley doesn't make fluid. Harley makes motorcycles. So they outsource their fluid and put their Harley brand on it. The best fluid to use, ATF transmission fluid. I have used this over and over and over and over. Old Harley guys will use this. It is the same thing. It doesn't break down. It's good for the piston. It lasts just as long as any other oil. So, get you a good measuring cup, clean it out good, and we're going to go 12.5 ounces. This cup does 5 ounces at a time. We'll hold the fork up and we'll pour. Now you'll hear it gurgling and making all kinds of noise. Now with each pour, I like to compress and release the cylinder, the fork, several times. And what I'm doing is just getting that oil in the piston and getting all the air out. So let's do this again. So this will be 10 ounces. Now you can hear that it's gotten quieter. Oh, almost. All right, now our forks are filled with fluid, and I will take and kind of clean off the threads inside here. Now before I put my spring in, we'll go ahead and get this old O-ring off and put our new one on. Before I put the new one on, I'm going to clean up all the old gunk that's in the crease where that O-ring sits. I'll clean off the top side as well, and the threads. These are fine threads. I think they're actually extra fine threads. I'll put the new O-ring on. I will lube it up a little bit. That helps it go on a lot easier because this is under a lot of compression and they're hard to get on sometimes. Okay, the tight coils go in first. You pull your fork all the way up, then you got this spacer here that was in there. It just falls down in there. Now we've got this. Now, doing this by yourself without any tools or fancy equipment is hard. So what I do is I go ahead and get my wrench set up. I'll put this on here. I'm going to have to compress this down into the fork, and I'm actually going to turn the fork counterclockwise so that it grabs these teeth or this thread. And I usually have to do this with the fork, bottom of the fork sitting on my foot. And I'll compress it down, give it a twist. Now, once it bites, go ahead and screw it a couple of threads, and then that's good. So I'll go ahead and just run this down. You won't be able to tighten this all the way like you want to. But we can put it on the bike, clamp it, and then tighten it. Now don't turn this over because you don't have your top cap in yet. But that is the fork, and it is re-sealed and fluid in it. And now you can compress it. Oh, it's good and solid. Exactly what you want. Now I'll go ahead and grab that little top nut that goes on here just so this doesn't spill out, and I got to put the new O-ring on it because if you don't go ahead and do that now, you'll forget it and have to do it later. All right, we'll take this O-ring off. We'll put the new one on, give it a little bit of oil. Now we're going to take this off. You have to take this off to slide the fork back on. But I don't want any fluid coming out, so I'm just going to kind of cap it on there best I can. All right, so our fork is now ready to go back up in to the bike, and then we'll start on our right side. We'll throw all the old O-rings away so we don't use them, the old seal. Now these, I'll keep these. I don't know why I do, but I do. Just in case, I don't know, I'll just keep them. Now you also want to make sure, before you put this back on, look up in there, make sure this is nice and dry down here, that nothing is leaking out, because if it is, then you didn't get a good seal on the bottom. So I'll put screwdriver in there just to clean out any junk. It's nice and dry. Now that everything's together, you can take this, put up in there. Now that it's compressed, turn it again just to make sure you got it good and tight, but yeah, we do. So let's go put this on the bike. All right, so to get this on the bike, we're gonna make sure that these right here line up on the side we want for our brake caliper. We'll go ahead and slide this up in. It should go nice and easy. I want to go about halfway because I got to take this off and I got to tighten this. So I will put my bolt in and we'll compress it to hold. Okay. Now I can take this top off. Let's tighten this up. It doesn't have to be crazy. There we go. Now we'll loosen pinch bolt up just enough to move it and slide it up in there. Now I will tighten this up, but we will redo this because I want to get the wheel back on, let the bike down where the weight of the wheel is pushing the forks up, so I know everything is equal on both sides and they sit up there nice and flush. I will put this on just hand tight so nothing gets down in that hole. No bugs go down in there. And that'll be our gauge to see how tight things are. Now a lot of people will tighten this up and it draws it up, but I like to put the weight of the bike on so I know everything's kind of fitting and setting in right, and then I'll tighten that up. So at this point, I'm just going to take the right side off, and this is why we left that right side in, because it lines the triple trees up and everything just goes back in nice and smooth. So now we'll take this right side off and we'll do the same thing we just did to the left side. We already broke that Allen bolt down below free. Hey, it's come out easier. Oh, I said that and then it didn't. This was the one that was bad, leaking real bad. The other one was leaking, but this is real bad. I don't suspect there'll be any fluid in this at all, but I'll see. I'll rebuild this same as the other. I'm not gonna be redundant and waste your time. And then we'll put this back on the bike, put the wheel back on, set it down, tighten these up, and the front is done besides putting everything back together. We got the right fork done and ready to go up in there. Now, there is this washer that goes on top of this as a height difference. So if your bike has that, don't forget to put that on there. Gonna go up just enough to lock this in so that I can turn this to seal it well. I'll loosen this back up just enough to where I can slide it back up in there. All right. Tighten it just enough to hold it where it won't slide out. I'll get the cap with the new O-ring, put it on there. We'll put the wheel on, let the bike down. All right, let's get our wheel up here. We'll get our axle. Clean our axle off and re-grease that with some lithium grease. Oh yeah. Make sure we still got our spacer in our wheel, and then we need our wheel sensor. Put that, make sure that wheel sensor gets back up in the tab. I'm not sure if you can see that or not. Now we'll loosen our pinch bolts up. We'll let the bike down just to where I watch the forks compress down. Oh yeah, I feel them now. Then I will tighten these top caps up. Now that the bike is compressed down, be mindful of your tank. Now we'll tighten these pinch bolts back up. And there you go. Our forks are done. I will torque that axle nut. Put our brake caliper back on. Put all this up here, or covers, or headlight housing. The headlight, I got to rewire these lights that I had to cut because I didn't want them hanging. But everything as far as forks are tightened. And you and I did a good job. Very successful, no leaks at all. It was messy, but we did it. All right, so we got our front end back together and all that went well. Our new fork seals are in, new fork fluids. The customer did come up and looked at that clutch basket and shook his head. What can you do? You buy a bike, you never know what you're getting inside. So we're going to be replacing the clutch basket. So we're going to be pulling all the clutch pads and disc and all that off. And so we're going to call this a part 1. Part 2, once we get the clutch basket in, we're going to start on that, fix that, pull this tank out, put the new starter in, and work on the brakes. So a lot more to come, so be looking for part 2. Thank you so much for hanging out in the shop with me today, and tell your mom and them I said hi.